This is a pretty long TikTok video, so settle in. For a few years, Beijing and Moscow have projected unity, summits, parades, record trade under the banner of friendship without limits. And while this partnership was a desperate lifeline for Putin and the crumbling Russian economy, it was a strategy for Xi Jinping. Xi is no ordinary world leader. He's the smartest guy in the room. So it's not surprising that in August, the tone shifted. China's exports to Russia fell by over 16%, and exports to China fell nearly 18%. And this is less about politics as we understand it in the West, because politics is done differently in the East. And there's much more information about China and how culture affects politics at culturalperspective.com. So, after Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, sanctions had a serious impact on the economy. Europe slashed energy imports, the US blocked finance and tech, and so Moscow pivoted east and leaned on Beijing. China filled the trade gap with consumer goods, electronics, autos, industrial parts, all for discounted Russian oil, gas, and coal. And this worked for both countries. And very quickly, by 2023, bilateral trade hit record levels. But Xi is smart enough to see what's happening. By August 2025, trade had slowed significantly. And here's why. China already bought what it needed. In the first 2 years, Beijing filled its oil and gas reserves at a discount. And with more wind, solar, and refining capacity coming online, it doesn't need to buy as much. Secondly, the sanctions risk just got riskier. Secondary sanctions now target firms that help Russia. So the European market alone is worth far more to the Chinese economy than trade and even discounted oil and gas from Russia. And at the end of the day, Xi's responsibility is to China, not Russia. And if we know any one thing about Xi, we know he takes care of his people. And that brings us to reason number three: domestic priorities. With growth pressure, property stress, and youth unemployment up, Beijing is prioritizing stability. And getting blacklisted would be self inflicted damage. All of this adds up to a subtle decoupling with trade with Russia. Sensitive equipment deliveries have slowed, banks have tightened compliance, moving money is more difficult now, and big projects are delayed or have gone quiet. Tech cooperation is pared back. AI, robotics, telecom deals, all delayed or dropped. The goal isn't to abandon Russia, it's to avoid crossing lines that put China at risk. And the reality is, this relationship has never been equal. China is a global manufacturing and export power with a lot of options, and options that are increasing. Russia, on the other hand, now has fewer buyers, and its options are diminishing. This means Beijing holds the power, and she understands that. War is bad for the economy, bad for China, something Russia does not seem to grasp. So she is willing to have military drills and summits with Russia, but he's not offering lethal aid. So, what it all means: Russia will have to offer deeper discounts, but still have fewer buyers. Putin will face less access to tech and more isolation. Russia will experience shortages and rising inflation, the very things that lead to a change in government. And China has a balancing act to play, keeping Russia on friendly terms and keeping the markets open to the West. And that is much more difficult than it sounds, but well within Xi's ability. So, as Russia becomes more isolated, what do you think Putin's next moves will be? Let me know in the comments.